Winning Plays Podcast is back, and the Celtics are up 1-0 in the NBA Finals. My name is Brian Robb, joined today by Brendan Jackson to break this all down. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at JackSOBD. Jax, we watched what I thought was honestly maybe the most entertaining Celtics game of the postseason in Game 1, and potentially the defining quarter of their season as they bounce back from a 15-point second half deficit, go 40-16 in the fourth quarter. Unreal. And just run away with Game 1 with a 120-108 win in something that I think had everyone's head spinning afterwards here. There's a lot of different ways to go in this game. I think we just have to start with the fourth quarter. And what I want to start, we'll get into the players in a second, but what are your thoughts on just the Ime adjustments that he went into there? Because I feel like we saw a lot of different looks and variations there, and he just seemed like everything he touched kind of turned to gold in that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a great post on this, masslive.com. I read it this morning, so shout out to you. Definitely check it out if you guys haven't read it yet. But I think you hit the nail on the head with those. First, going small, one big, getting rid of the double big lineup, having Derrick White out there. And then there's something that I noticed and talked about with Ryan Bernardoni during, on Twitter during the game last night, keeping Pritchard in there. Ballsy. I don't even know if I can say that on the pod, but ballsy.
You could say that more on the pod.
Yeah, exactly. It was crazy. Ryan pointed out had a good point when Pritchard Klay Thompson came around that screen and sort of a corner three extended a little bit, and Pritchard was trailing but sort of recovered, but he's only 6'1", whatever, and he got that, Thompson got that clean look. I thought, Ime's going to pull him, Smart's going to go back in. It was 5 minutes left, and I'm so happy he didn't. It's like he stuck with him. Then he hit that big corner three, and then everyone noticed the dude defensive rebounds. When everyone is definitely focused on Kevon Looney and definitely focused on any guards coming in, he can kind of sneak in and gobble up those defensive rebounds. He was just, again, I don't want to give him too much credit, but he was just awesome. And so that was a huge adjustment from Ime that I'm so happy that he didn't overreact, take him out, put Smart in. He pulled the right levers in the fourth quarter, and it showed.
Yeah, it's so the perfect good feel for that, in terms Smart wasn't having a bad game.
No,
he just wasn't he honestly was one of the guys who probably showed up the most in the first half. And I mean, there were all sorts of issues that we'll get into there early on, but he was there was 99% of the time you're going to see the coach go back to the reliable starter with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, or 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But Ime just leaned into, I really like how this guy is playing right now. I really like how the offense looks around him. He obviously he only had 5 points. It's not like he was doing a ton of stuff, but just the spacing, the presence, kind of going into the max shooting, lineup, if you will. I feel just opened things up, and the ball is popping. 12 assists, Jax, in the fourth quarter. It was obviously the Warriors' heads were spinning, and the Pritchard was the kind of guy that just makes you pay if you're gonna send the doubles at Tatum and Brown, which they continuously kept doing during this run.
Totally. And that's what teams kept, I wouldn't say making a mistake because Tatum is that good, but in the second half of the season, when the Celtics went on that run, it was mostly because Tatum became a facilitator. They would send two, and the Celtics were all too happy to move the ball. That's why in the last two series, Milwaukee, Miami, it was kind of scary. It devolved into a lot of hero ball, a lot of one-on-ones, because they had the horses to guard Tatum one-on-one. They weren't worried about sending doubles necessarily all the time. And the Warriors don't seem to have that guy. I mean, Wiggins obviously did a really good job on Doncic. Tatum and Doncic are very different players. Tatum is so much more athletic. You can't put Wiggins on Tatum and just shut him down. His shooting percentage last night notwithstanding, right? 17. But yeah, it was really, really great to watch. But I will say they were also hitting shots. Now, they weren't as heavily contested as they were. They probably felt wide open based on the last two series and how closely guarded they were. But, they were hitting those open shots, and credit to them for sure.
Yeah. It's you look at it, you're not sure, and we'll get into Draymond Green's comments in a bit, but like, when the Celtics make that counter to that smaller lineup, which I think obviously we saw it a bit in the first half, but you had the feeling that Ime was kind of keeping in his back pocket here, and then obviously rolled it out at the beginning of the fourth quarter instead of waiting until crunch time. And my guess is as the series goes on, like, it's going to be a bigger and bigger chunk of the game now that they're in this.
I honestly could see it go both ways, because I know we're talking about the fourth quarter, but that first half, the first half of the first half defense, they were just so out of sorts. And like, they would switch on Robb, and Robb wouldn't press up far enough. Those are small adjustments that you can make with the double big. I think he's going to, obviously I wouldn't be surprised, but do whatever works. Right. And obviously that small lineup worked, but they just love Robb in that dunker spot. And so if you can get, him to just be a little bit pushed further up, and then they build a wall for Steph, they're going to try it again in game 2 for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, they'll keep the starting 5. It's a matter of like, are we just going to see it for just the first 5 or 6 minutes of each half and that's it? Or right. Is it, like you said, do they make the adjustments to it to counteract it so they can, kind of hold their own on the floor? But it's something that Ryan and I talked about a little bit on the preview pod earlier this week of it's just like a matchup situation in terms of like, okay, if you want to have Robb guard Andrew Wiggins, like, I don't think that's a good idea big picture wise, like in terms of like defensively and the type of shots they were getting. And when you take away that options from the Warriors in the half court, then it seems like options get a lot more limited for them in terms of what they can do.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Robb kept leaving because he's supposed to. He's sort of the freelancer, but they dared Wiggins to beat them, and he beat them a bunch of times, wide open threes. And I know he's not the shooter, Steph and Clay are. You pick your poison that way, but I don't think you have to. I think Ime overthought coverages. I think there were way too many. Okay, if Steph does this, if it's a 1-5, it's a 3-5, it's a, pick and roll, if or rather 1-3, whatever, this is when we do this. And obviously there were so many miscommunications. Yeah. Steph had like 3 wide open threes and Clay had 2. And it's just like, guys, you're overthinking it. Just go over the pick, switch hard. And then, when a guy like Kevon Looney dives hard to the rim, like he's supposed to, or Draymond Green, you have to, the wings spread defenders have to recover, and everyone just has to recover. And you give up offensive rebounds that way, which was what we saw, but way better to give an offensive rebound if you're contesting hard and conceding an open 3 or an open dunk. I will say one of Andre Iguodala's dunks, it was like picture perfect Warriors basketball. It was like, the Celtics hedged hard, they doubled, and then they gave it to Draymond Green, and then the weak side guy stepped up.
Right, it's a 2-on-1, and then it was over.
Exactly, yeah. And it was beautiful if you're a Warriors fan. But I think the Celtics have the ability to counter that, and they've shown it all playoffs. They've shown it the whole second half of the season. They just need to get locked in. Like, that's it.
So, that's done. Like, we'll see what they do there moving forward in this series. Let's get back to the fourth quarter for a minute here, though. Since we haven't even really talked about the players any yet beyond Ime and, going small. I mean, you have to start with Jaylen Brown. Absolutely. In terms of who I honestly thought kind of brought it out of the gate in this game. And then things went astray in like the middle 2 quarters there for a shot for a little bit. But he always, like, the way he played, he seemed to like be the one guy that had it going, out of the gate in terms of like his shot making. But what he did in that fourth quarter, just to start it, to like clearly get the Warriors out of sorts by just, owning them in isolation situations, and then perfectly saying, okay, you're going to throw those my way, I'm going to start passing the ball. And he led the team with 5 assists in the fourth quarter. I just love
how the long 2 is the worst shot in basketball, unless it's not, it's like Jaylen Brown. That was like, he just got cooking. And they were good contests. He, like, you know what I mean? He would hard couple dribbles. The one, I don't think this was in the fourth, but when there were a couple times in the first half when he got too deep and got kind of swallowed up at the rim. And it was funny, like, the Wiggins block. Remember when Wiggins just like absolutely sent it back to him? And it's like, if he had just pulled up where he's more comfortable, like free throw line extended, boom, he would have been fine. But I think he was just, the more you get to the rim, the more it opens up wide. So I get there are reasons why you take a contested, try to get to the rim. But man, he was so good, and he really set the tone. I mean, I know we're going to talk about Al Horford. I know we're going to talk about Derrick White hitting shots. I know we're going to talk about Marcus Smart. Making. I saw on Twitter, it was so smart. Someone posted, he made the shots that he missed in Miami, those wide open threes in Game 7, and it was just like, it's so true. It's like it's the difference between giving up a lead and extending a lead. And so anyway. Right. But it all goes back to Jaylen Brown. They were down. How do I, Tatum is not hitting. Everyone's tired. I'm going to put this team on my back. I'm going to hit a bunch of shots. I'm going to be super aggressive. And then I'm going to dish when necessary. I loved his fourth quarter. I just loved it.
Yeah. 10 points, 5 assists, 4 or 6 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3, 2 rebounds, just 1 turnover, 1 team turnover that quarter, which again was just as big as anything there when you put together an offensive quarter like that, which was the most points that not only was it the most points the Warriors gave up in a postseason quarter this season, it was also the fewest points they scored. 16.
Unreal.
Literally the worst two-way quarter for them in the entire postseason. All right. So Jaylen was fantastic. And then I think we got honestly, if you go next, I think you got to go Derrick White, who was in there for the entire quarter, who was, I think, fantastic this whole game. 21 points plus 25, which is a team high in 32 minutes. I mean, this is we knew that going into this series is like, this is the perfect series for Derrick White in terms of like seeing his value against a team like this. But this is, for as rough of a shooting night as he's had over the season, this was, I think, regression to the mean. I mean, he made a couple of tough ones, but like a lot of them were just free flowing good looks. And he's obviously a middle of the road 3-point shooter, but he's shot like crap for much of the first of 3 or 4 months and got comfortable here.
Yeah, it was weird. He looked total San Antonio Derrick White.
Yes.
He looked like the guy that, could put 30 up against us and we're like, what the hell, and he just looked awesome. And it was weird. This morning, I was like, I should have done this a while ago. Maybe I did and I forgot, but like I went to Basketball Reference and I was like, I never remember him being a minus shooter. Like, I don't remember him being Steph Curry, but like, I don't remember he was like mid to high 30s his whole career. It's just this weird back half of the season where he just, I don't know if it was like the new team, learning a new whatever. His wife was super pregnant. I mean, like there's so many reasons why he maybe just was a little off or whatever, but he seems to have found it in the back half of the Miami series, in this game, certainly. And it's going to be huge. Not only his defense, his switchability, and his ability to get to the rim, his teardrops, his finish is just so nice. I love his touch around the rim. Oh my God. He's wetting these shots. Like they're not bouncing around or, pinballing. No, he is wetting them. It's great. It's great. It's great to see.
And that's probably honestly might not even be his most important value. Like from a defensive standpoint, he was, you don't know. There were obviously, like you talked about, there were plenty of defensive miscues in the first half, and he was a part of some of those. Whose fault it is in those scenarios? Like we're never going to know in full when there's, 2 guys go on the handoff of someone in the basket.
You know who I say it is?
Right.
I'm gonna say it's Ime's fault every time.
Right. So it's like whether things need to be simplified to avoid those scenarios, like that's I think going to be a discussion in the coaches' room in these next 2 days. But White, when you go small with the lineup and you say, hey guys, just like hold up against your men, hold up against Steph Curry, hold up against Klay Thompson, White did that
Absolutely.
Perfectly in the second half. And to get that on top with the 21 points is like, again, like giving up. This is like the perfect definition of a win now trade for this team, and
totally
worth every penny.
Win now and later. He's signed.
Yeah, right. And he's signed for the next 4 years. Three more years.
3 more years. And he'll never be a minus player, right? On this deal, he's 27 years old. Like he'll never so even if the Celtics, I don't know, Al Horford retires or whatever, Rob Williams is injured, you got to find, you're never going to be mad that you have Derrick White on a good deal. It just won't. Obviously you need smart insurance. He'll never play 82 games. and that's fine. But like, it was so smart by Brad.
I wondered again earlier this week, like if they won't change anything now, but if White ultimately finds himself just like starting in the series.
Yeah.
Because
I thought Ryan, I listened to your last pod, and I thought Ryan was like too bullish on the idea that if the Celtics adjust, it's because the Warriors are dominating. I'm like, I don't know, man. I mean, things
this might be their best lineups. It's just their best lineup. Like,
yeah, exactly. And like, you're gonna pull a million different things early in a series and see what works, and then late you're gonna tweak. And it's like, I have confidence in Derrick White, and I have confidence in a healthy Rob Williams. So like, I think you kind of have an embarrassment of riches. So if everyone's playing up to their potential, right?
Yeah.
We saw against Milwaukee and Miami some bad offensive play, but I gotta be honest, and I said this a couple of times last night on Twitter, like this Golden State team is a solid defensive team, and they obviously have the pedigree of being a very good defensive team in their past years. They are not what they were, and they are not Miami and Milwaukee.
No, not close.
They are seeing why the basket must look like they're playing in an empty gym right now, and they'll sort of get used to, they'll fall back down to earth a little bit, and they'll get used to like, their defense and maybe picking different plays, things like that. But like, man, I'm sure they're like, I could play tomorrow, because they're just not as beat up as they were in Miami and Milwaukee. They're battle tested. It's just the game one was such a perfect storm of the Miami and Milwaukee really preparing them to weather a run from Golden State, which, as you know, I texted you, it's over. When they went up 10 in the third, I was like, it's over. There's no chance. Like, everyone's they're just going to get cooked. They're just going to, like, the shooters are going to get cooking, and the Celtics are going to try, but they just don't have the offense. Well, they have the offense if they're not being as guarded as closely. Like, that's what we found out in the fourth. So, man, it's just going to be a different series, and I got to really recalibrate how I watch this stuff.
And to your point on the defense, it's like, yeah, there are some, Draymond's Draymond. Like, Looney obviously had a hell of a game and had 3 blocks, was a nice force down low there. But Curry and like Thompson is just not close to the defender he was early in his career before these injuries.
A little, yeah.
And Curry is Curry. Like, Curry will like put the work in, but he's still like, not anyone even can be forgive, and certainly someone that Tatum and Brown can pick on if they get matched up there. And then, like you said, like Otto Porter off the bench, like Iguodala is very, very old now and is still useful, but he's certainly not going to give you the pounding that you got from Miami and Milwaukee. So it's for me, like, yeah, they're not going to change anything starting wise, obviously, after this win. But I wonder now, if they lose game 2 and it's another tough night for the Doe Bigs, I wonder if you just go there now. Like, you make Faye, we're not going to like fool around here. Like, we're going to go small out of the gate. We're going to play these guys 35 minutes a night anyway. So why, waste the opening 6 minutes of the game letting Steph or Clay get hot? But who knows? Maybe they won't need to go there. Maybe they like play well enough where that just isn't an option they need to do to mess with.
Totally, because the Celtics were beating themselves in the first quarter. Like, again, you can't leave Steph wide open. And I know I said I'm always going to blame Ime, but that's not to say that Ime is not an excellent coach. He is freaking awesome. Okay. But like when a team collectively continues to leave the best shooter ever wide open, that's either a problem with strategy, going under the pick, which you can't do, or a problem with communication, where you're telling, the guys, like, the starters know, but then Derrick White comes in and he's confused, or Rob's confused because he's the 5, or it's just
hard against the Warriors. It's hard to do that stuff against like the way they run the offense.
Totally. But it's preparation, right? And those are all Ime things. Like Ime, like, so, and I just think in game 2, that stuff's going to be completely cleaned up. Steph's he could still go off being covered. That's, in the second half, he was getting wide open shots just from juking people, just from breaking ankles. So he's able to do whatever he wants pretty much whenever he wants. So like, you don't need to give them the wide open one. So I think they're going to clean that up for game 2, which is why I think that they're not necessarily giving away the first 6 minutes by going double big. But you're right. I mean, if it continues to happen, even if they don't mess up the coverages or Robb is good, locked in, whatever, they still could lose that first quarter just because the Warriors are that good offensively.
Right. And so, I mean, that like we said, we'll see how they clean things up with that group in game 2. And then that will probably tell us a lot in terms of what direction they go in for the rest of the series here. We haven't talked about Al Horford yet. We're contractually obligated to do so. He's now up to 46% from 3 in the postseason. He kind of like the shot disappeared from him for a couple games at the end of that Miami series, which was like totally expected /
tired
legs, 40 minutes a night, like been shooting the lights out for a while. But again, the lack of respect the Warriors gave him for a lot of these looks in this series, like Draymond not even coming out of the paint for a couple of them to start the game. And he, I don't know, I mean, 9 of 12. We know the shots he hit in the third quarter, the fourth quarter, coming in well rested after Robb. Man the ship there to start it. But from what Al did here, it's like, okay, yeah, he had a really good game. Like this is kind of been the story of his postseason.
Absolutely. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is what we've seen the last 2 series is like, he's had one supernova game and then he's been super quiet the rest of the series. So I wonder, is this a supernova game or is this kind of like a factor of the fourth quarter? Like, cause up until the fourth quarter, he had a solid game, but it wasn't like,
it was like, wasn't sticking out off the page or something like that.
Exactly. And then he just stopped losing offensive rebounds to Looney. He stopped, like he hit like 2 or 3 threes, like just unreal. So I hope this isn't a supernova game, but if it is, I still think the Celtics are in a really good spot. I mean, anytime you steal game 1, you're in a great spot. So, I
mean, you stole game 1 and Tatum went 3-17.
I know.
Like exactly. That's the thing. Like, oh yeah, like this is like, if this is a supernova game, that's amazing timing for this.
Because, and not just stole it because they blew them out.
Yeah, right. I mean, they right. If the game was another 5 minutes, they would have won by like 20.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, like it is, you hope that with again, depending on how the Warriors play this, like those looks are going to continuously be there for him in this series. Like, yeah, maybe it won't be like they'll start contesting, but if they contest too hard, then they're giving away other stuff. And then
absolutely,
again, the Celtics, it's just a reminder here that, the Celtics had the best offense in the NBA in the second half of the season. And we didn't see a lot of that in the slog in the football games that were like the Heat and the Bucks series. This is not going to be that type of series. It doesn't seem like, and maybe the Warriors really try to muck it up and they try to do that, but I don't know if they have the dogs to do that as well as
they got one guy who I think is not going to play. It's Gary Payton. Like Gary Payton Jr., like awesome, bulldog, get in your face, make everything hard for you. He broke his elbow like 3 weeks ago. Like, come on, man. Like he obviously, I love that he was getting ready. No brace, no cast. Obviously he's tough as hell. He's just a guy you would love to have, but I think it's a smokescreen. I don't think if he's going to play, I think it's like Tyler Hero last series, just a shell of himself. So if they really, the Warriors,
they won't have to guard him on offense. Like that's a trade-off.
True. But in transition you do, because I mean, and here's the thing about the Warriors and why the Celtics were able to pull away so easily. Like a missed shot against the Warriors is like a losing proposition. They're so good. Even that leak out by Klay Thompson, Draymond just threw it up to him and he got that dunk at the end. And I know it was meaningless, but like that can't happen in game 2, game 3. The Celtics have to continue to hit a high percentage of their shots or else they're going to give up those easy transition points. And Gary Payton is a guy who could definitely get out in transition.
Yeah. I mean, well, certainly I'd be shocked if we don't see him in game 2 just to see what he has.
Sure, but I think it's broken elbow.
I know. I agree. It's a pretty miraculous turnaround, like a month out to be back. But I mean, again, we'll like time will tell what actually that looks like there. Who did we miss here? we covered pretty much everyone. We haven't talked about Tatum at all. 12 points, 13 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 of 17 night. I'll credit Tatum a lot for this. He was happy, very, very happy to play the facilitator role in the fourth quarter. And that hasn't always been the case. This is certainly, we've seen many movies when he's had just a real rough night where 3 of 17 ends up being 5 of 25 and like hurts a little too much. This fourth quarter, he was happy to hand the keys over to Jaylen and then happy just to move the ball. Even in transition, some really great, like looking for the trailer for Horford on a couple of those threes. And so that stuff, I mean, whatever, the shooting night's the shooting night, like, he just didn't have it. But that stuff is like, you go back in the film and you were like, wow, this is a really promising sign.
And his body language, and I think body language is like a little overblown, but like he was not upset. He wasn't arguing with the refs. He wasn't upset.
Yeah, I don't remember one of those. I don't remember like one, like him upset the ref, like at least like freak out or anything.
Well, I think part of the reason is they let him play last night. Like the refs were perfect last night. Yeah. I had very little issue. I think, Steph got one gift call that I remember, and I think probably Tatum probably got a gift call too. So like it all kind of balances out, but like, it
was a clean game.
Yeah, it was a clean game. They're roughly the same free throws, and then Tatum being a facilitator, like I remember they asked him post-game, someone asked him post-game first question, like 3 for 17, how you feeling? And he goes, ecstatic. Like we just came in won by 12 against the Golden State Warriors in their building in the NBA finals, man. Like, cause he also knows I feel like this is his feel out game, man. I think he's going to go off in game 2 or game 3. Like he had like 4 wide open threes that he inexplicably bricked, airballed one bad. Like it's not happening, dude. If he gets open shots, he's going off next game.
They're going to see those looks and be happy about that. 2 days off until game 2. What are you expecting? We talked adjustments from the Celtics there, just cleaning up, I think is first and foremost what we're expecting. I don't think we're going to see anything else beyond maybe more of this small lineup in bigger doses here. For one, what if you're Ime Udoka, what are you expecting from the Warriors in game 2, Jax? And like how do you kind of prepare for that in terms of like counters they could try to mess with you here?
Yeah, I think the Warriors are going to play harder, especially in the second half. I think they're going to Klay Thompson's going to shoot a little bit better. They're going to try to get him going a little bit. I mean, last series he had like a 30-point game and he was like unconscious. Other than that, though, I don't really know how much they have. Like they got a ton of open looks from their role players. Wiggins shot wide open looks. Porter, we talked about Porter Jr. and Andre Iguodala. I don't really know what other levers they can pull other than telling Jordan Poole to kind of calm down.
Yeah, right. I mean, honestly, pulling him a lot. He was bad. He was bad. He hurt them a lot.
He looks slow too. And maybe the Celtics.
He's a bad defender. He
was a bad defender for sure. But he's so quick on offense. Like I watched the other series and I was like, wow, who's going to match up with him? And I think the Celtics are just that much better defensively that they're not really worried about. I mean, he had a couple nice, like he had a beautiful floater where I was like, oh my God, this kid can score. But like other than that, like at some point he's either going to have to figure it out in the defensive end, figure out like how to play team game, or he's Jordan Clarkson, which no shade to Jordan Clarkson. Sometimes you need like, a Flip Murray off the bench, instant offense, but like, you're not going to rely on that to win you an NBA finals.
Right. Well, you just get exposed enough in other parts of your game where that's just not enough. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, like the rest of their bench played well, like Porter, Iguodala shot well. They obviously didn't go deep beyond that. I don't expect them much to, unless Peyton, like we talked about, comes into the play here.
I can see Bielitsa a little bit. I mean, I'm kind of shocked he didn't play. Why do you think defense?
I think it's just defense. And you're right. I mean, like we'll see. And I get like they shot 42% from 3.
Right.
So it's like
they don't need him.
Right. So it's like, and then Looney, I mean, he 4 points, but he was a monster on the offensive glass, and that's clearly something the Celtics are going to have to, try to figure how to shore that up better, because that's going to keep burning them all series long between him and Draymond and other guys just, really pounding that glass in the first 3 quarters that the Celtics were able to clean up late. But you're right. I mean, it's a situation there where I'm not sure, like, they have levers to pull. I'm just not sure they're going to solve any problems.
Yeah.
If the Celtics again, and the Celtics could start shooting shitty or like turning the ball over a bunch, and then that solves a lot of problems for the Warriors.
Draymond's going to shoot a little better too. I watched all of his field goal attempts before the pod, and a lot of them were just misses, like sort of around the paint extended, and he like little teardrops. He makes those, like he blew a couple layups. I don't know what it is. He's not going to make a jumper. Like he was 0 for 5, from 3. He might go 1 for 5 in a game, but like, and he's got to be wide open, but he missed like 4 wide open shots. And it's just like, dude, you got to be a threat at least a tiny bit. And he's not. So he's going to play a little bit better. I think that, like I said, that I mentioned that play earlier where doubled Steph, threw it to Draymond. Draymond just did a nice little high-low dump off to Iggy. We're going to see more of that. But I think the Celtics, they have the horses to counter. They just have the horses to counter. So, Steve Kerr's a lot smarter than I am. Draymond Green is sure as shit a lot smarter than I am at basketball. So they're going to figure it out. They're going to play better. But I had Celtics in 6 from the beginning because I thought, you could have a supernova game from one or all of their stars, and then you could have a slugfest. But I'm feeling real confident about that prediction. After game 1, I'm excited to see what game 2 has, but I don't see how they counter. I'm like game 2, Rob played 24 minutes. I don't think he needs to play a single more minute.
No.
Al Horford did little under 33. This is great. 2 days off. This is all playing out Celtics favor right now. It's just, it's exciting.
All right. Well, we're going to have, it's going to be a whole lot of pressure on Golden State on Sunday night. Celtics looking for the early knockout punch. And, we'll see again how we know the Warriors are going to come out with the urgency. We'll see if the Celtics are able to match that level, or if they're, play like they're happy that they just got one out there, which, there's nothing to be sad about there. But obviously you would change, if we have another close one on our hands here, then that's going to be something else.
Well, I'll say one more thing that I forgot to say earlier. The other first games that the Celtics lost, they just got blown out. They sort of got blitzed. They sort of, I wouldn't say they weren't ready, but they were, there was stuff that they weren't prepared for. They were absolutely prepared for this game. They were ready, and they were down big to a very talented offensive team, and they came back and won big. That's totally different from any other game they played. So I think this is just a much different series. And it's just the other Celtics against Miami and Milwaukee wouldn't have come back from that. And they're coming back.
Well, I mean, the Heat pretty much did what the Warriors did in game 3. The third quarter of game 1. And then the Celtics just didn't have they didn't have the counterpunch that time. They couldn't get stops in that game.
Yep.
This game, they got stops, and the offense obviously was there too. So, all right, that's it for us for now. We'll be back again for later this weekend with game 2 reaction. Make sure you're following Brendan Jackson on Twitter at JackSOBD. And I'll be posting stuff on Mass Live all weekend long, so check us out there. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the Wing Place Pod. Really appreciate you guys listening a bunch throughout this postseason run. We'll be back at it with you guys and be back talking to Ryan B. Jackson and the rest of the crew after these upcoming games here.